the opportunity to go on this journey of divine feminine with us tonight. Understanding the divine feminine is a journey of exploring and embracing the qualities associated with femininity that extend far beyond gender. It involves recognizing and honoring your intrinsic power, the wisdom, and the nurturing energy that resides within all individuals, regardless of the gender identity. The divine feminine represents a spectrum of qualities that are often associated with femininity, such as intuition, empathy, nurturing, being compassionate, creativity. These qualities embody the essence of the divine feminine energy, and it also plays a very significant role in nurturing authenticity. To understand the divine feminine, it is essential to recognize that it is not just limited to women alone, but both men and women can embody and express their divine feminine energy within themselves. It is about embracing and integrating these qualities into our lives and allowing them to guide our actions and choices. This energy encourages us to connect with our emotions and our intuition, allowing us to tap into an even deeper well of wisdom and insight. It calls us to cultivate compassion and empathy both towards ourselves and others, fostering nurturing and supportive relationships. The divine feminine also inspires creativity and the ability to birth new ideas, projects, and expressions into the world, into your universe. And understanding and embodying this energy invites us to challenge the traditional notion of power and strength. And it encourages us to embrace vulnerability as a source of authenticity and courage. This energy teaches us to value collaboration, community, interconnectedness, and fostering a sense of unity and harmony. In exploring and integrating the divine feminine within ourselves allows us to embrace our authentic self fully. It provides us with the tools to navigate life with grace, compassion, intuition, enabling us to live in alignment with our truest and highest form of self, values, and purpose. Engaging with the divine feminine is a deeply personal and transformative process. It involves self-reflection, inner exploration, and an openness to embrace and honor the qualities that define our unique expression of the divine feminine energy. By embracing and understanding the divine feminine energy within ourselves, we can foster a more balanced and authentic way of being, not only for our own well-being, but for the alignment and betterment of our culture and our community. All right, welcome to The Real Tea with Dr. Latricia E. And today we're going to keep it real with y'all and talk about the divine feminine. I have with me Dr. Lisa, Tia, and Kennedy. All right, Dr. Lisa.
Yeah.
My
Happy
fellow
to be
podcaster.
Here. That's right, I am. Owning her health.
All right, so you're a female expert. And tell us about, your platform and what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm really happy. Thank you so much for having me over here to talk the tea here, and for these beautiful young goddesses next to I feel very blessed being in this sandwich right now, because I talk about when I longtime clinician, both at both ends, being the very high extreme, very masculine. Orthopedic sports medicine competitive vibe, and then at the other end going into working in maternal health and women's health and chronic pain and that end of the spectrum. So that was my life for about 25, 26 years. And over that time, I owned my own practice, and then I went into leadership development because I saw so much of the conversation, not only for the women, but for the men that needed to also re-embrace the divine feminine in their own way. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you guys.
I am too.
Thanks.
I am too. I know you and I have had discussions, and we talk a lot about, embracing her or re-embracing her, and how we, get to, I guess, embrace the feminine when we're not taught from an early age. Like, how do we recreate that? How can we use our power to become this divine woman?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question, because what we have to first realize is, like you said, we have to re-embrace that whole entire concept. And I think we're in a place right now where that's been sort of, there's just a point of confusion, I think. It's very hard for us when you're saying, like, we weren't learning this. No, I learned I'm a 50-year-old woman. I grew up in, right in the heyday of Gloria Steinem, second wave feminism. But what was that? And that was to go off and play the guy's game. And I will say first, this is not a feminine is in women and masculine is in men. We hold both energies. We're talking at the quantum level. We hold both, and it's a dance. And I kind of speak to it in terms of just being leadership and personal development, and kind of how are we going to mix that into one thing. And I think the biggest thing I see is that we need to get into our own authentic power, especially as women right now, because we're kind of jumped from this sort of like girl power thing of third wave feminism to intersectionality, which is great, but we never quite got the conversation of her. We were just at that edge of what does it mean to be her, and not necessarily her. I call it the lipstick patriarchy. It's him with high heels, lipstick on, and you just go into it and be that version of him.
So we're pretty much taught to basically identify with our masculinity and operate in our masculinity.
Well, we're taught to understand power as the masculine energy and what that feels like, and whether or not that comes out as the social construct of this is masculinity, this is femininity, that's its own conversation. Those are social constructs. But the actual power and what that feels like, I don't think we're comfortable with it. I know I struggled in being a strong, independent woman. What does that mean? And then it's actually a deconstruction of that, and then trusting the vulnerabilities, trusting the access to me, trusting that's going to actually get me, if not what I would get the other way, through that other power of domination and being like power over. We were kind of introduced to this imbalanced patriarchal type of way of using power, which men had the control of, and so we say it's the masculinity, but really it is this. We all have the masculine power. It's just that I'm so comfortable in that. I'm not comfortable in that more being receptive. I might not trust people as much because I have not been put in a position where I'm safe enough to do that. And so I might struggle with the surrender. These girls are saying yes. So I'm excited because they're younger than me. So, so it's hard for me to go there when I need to be in a protected space, when I need to be in these energetics. And I think that's really what the problem is. We have power. And in the same way, men are not comfortable with that power because the whole idea of kind of getting love in an unconditional way, to be perfectly honest, we canceled men out with the whole rising of everything. We did a cancel culture of men. Right. And then now we're like, where are all the good guys? Well, we canceled them. Right. So it's like finding them again. But you can't see them, the ones on the rise that are getting it, unless you see it in yourself. I can't, if I don't see the divine masculine in me, how the heck am I going to see it in somebody else? And that's what we're struggling with right now, is like being comfortable to kind of blend that without negating the feminine. It's not one or the other.
Oh, this is good. So I really have two questions. First is, what does it mean to be I am woman? Secondly, how do we use our feminine power once we embrace that to help nurture that man back to his masculinity and balance and things of that
That is the
nature?
$1,000,000 question. I'm actually writing a book right now trying to sort of like put the layers of that because it is so complex. Because again, we're talking power, we're talking relationships, relational intelligence, we're talking emotional intelligence, which isn't necessarily relational intelligence. And then we're also talking, just humans in the state of chaos right now that we're in with everything else going on. So it's so complex. It's not. It's kind of sexual energy, power, and money, because that's really right. That's really where what we're kind of talking about now. Like, how are we working with all of this in us? And so I think when you say what is woman, I mean, that's a huge debate right now. Like, well, woman can be, what everything could be a woman, called a woman. But honestly, I don't think there was a recent documentary that was like, they asked like a whole bunch of people, academics, and nobody can come up with a definition now. So I almost feel like now we're at this point where we're all like, we canceled man, now we're canceling woman. And yet none of us, and yet I know who I am. I mean, I know how I feel. So the best thing I can say is if you embrace the being a woman, then I think it's time to step up, not in the way the game was played, but in the way you feel, in your life. Because we were all, that's the only way you could play the game if there's only one rule system. And so you're either good or bad in that, right? You're either playing by the rules or you're not. But I think we're at a place now with everything, just deconstruction of everything, that we can say, actually, and it's always been this way, but we've got the technology now, the connections, we've got, enough consciousness and we've got, 2 generations right here.
And I see them over there shaking.
Of beautiful women that can now be at a consciousness level where they can actually say, I don't want to grab that ball and run on his field. I actually just want to do what we do. And we just literally create an economy, an alternative that we can then say, hey, you want to come over here? Because on this, you don't got to grind and do this all day and this and all that. But you're still going to get to success. You don't got to be on a hierarchy. You're going to still get, there's a thing such as systems thinking. There's a thing, and we did this, but we didn't get paid for it, or we didn't necessarily have power for it. I mean, this is the thing that got people through let's say escaping and designing in their hair the maps to get out and get, this is it. We have still that power, but we have not actually used it. So I firmly believe that I am woman is whatever you want it to be, but whatever it is, you better show up in that power, and you better start allowing yourself with visibility, because somebody's looking for it. Some other generation's looking for that leader. And if you don't take it, if you don't take the leadership, do not sit there and say it's the patriarchy. It ain't the patriarchy right now. It's just you're not using your power properly.
Attention all trucking companies. Is your fleet in need of a thorough cleaning? Are you tired of driving around in dirty and grimy trucks? Our team specializes in 16-wheeler truck cleaning services. We use the latest cleaning techniques and equipment to ensure that your trucks are spotless and road ready. From exterior washing to interior detailing, we've got you covered. The Velvet Touch ATL cleaning service, where cleanliness meets perfection. Call us today at 678-358-0506 to schedule your truck cleaning service. This ad is brought to you and provided by The ATL Touch Atlanta. Thank you. Let's continue the show.
What do you ladies think?
Yes, what do you ladies think? My babies.
I definitely feel like being a woman is just standing in your truth, standing on what you believe in, regardless of a relationship, regardless of a job, regardless of, your situation. It's just who you are to your core. So although woman is kind of turning into this broader spectrum, like there's such a bigger definition for it now. To its core, it's just knowing who you are and knowing your truth. And I forgot your second question. I had a way to go into it, but yeah.
The second question was,
Well, you had asked about how do we maybe
Use-
model that
to
for
nurture.
the
Yeah. I definitely feel like it's first, like you said, it's knowing your own power. It's knowing who you are, because you can't expect to nurture somebody and help them through what they're going through, and you're battling stuff yourself. That's not healthy to me. And it's a little selfish to yourself, I feel, is what I'm realizing, is that you have to take care of yourself first. But when it comes to that man, it has to be mutual, like seeing both sides for yourself. So I have to be able to identify my masculine and my feminine parts of myself and be okay with that, and learn how to use those parts in a healthy manner and teach that to my partner, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I feel like you also have to be able to take accountability, because we're women.
there you go.
Like, we're women.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're always gonna be on some, like, that's just how it is. We have to be able to take accountability and understand, like, that man is also going through his own journey. Like, especially, like, it could be a situation where this is completely new for both you and him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, both of you guys are making sacrifices. Both of you guys are, putting what you individually think is your all into this relationship. So he could be going through something in his mind because this is triggering for him. You may do things that trigger him, whatever. So you have to be able to take accountability, and that shows your growth within yourself and how much you've healed, because you can take accountability.
What does accountability really mean?
Well, I love how Tia kind of like spoke to that because I think there's a confusion there. I think people don't understand taking responsibility and taking accountability are two different things. And I do see that in working with, again, I was working with this athletic Division I, mostly men. And I would see it on the sport, in sports or whatever. They could do that. They could take responsibility for saying this is their position. This is who I am on the team. This is where I got to be, or whatever. And then when things didn't work out, I saw them also take accountability, where they were like, it was my bad. I wasn't whatever. I didn't see them blame or whatever, because then the coach would come down, right? A good coach would say, look, this is not team play. Right? And it's always that one cell, that cancer cell on the team that's like not taking accountability. It blames whoever wasn't into place or whatever. I don't see that as much off of the court or off of the thing, whereas women, I think, are always maybe on the other thing where we're so accountable. We understand the accountability, or at least like if you're healthy in yourself, and if you're having kids or you're with siblings you have to care for, we just by our nature are sort of programmed with this accountability of understanding we're going to take our thing is sometimes feeling overwhelmed at the responsibilities we have sometimes, and then maybe we're being too accountable, and so we got to let other people take responsibility for certain things. We have to delegate. So it's almost like, again, that would be great, that we're actually made in a wonderful way. We have a partner programmed, again, it could be anybody, but if somebody's taking that masculine power, they want to take responsibility. They actually feel good. They feel they have purpose. They have direction. It's very simple. But if we're not going to give it to them, right? So it's like we actually are matched very well for them to kind of take some responsibility. But if you're the person that's like, I can do it all, I'm training to do it all. Like you said, Tia, we got to be accountable for that. And that's coming out of some of our trigger and our wounds of people not being there for us to give us that. But then we can't necessarily, if we don't see it in ourselves and we don't work on that healing, we can't actually see it when it comes to us. It feels really uncomfortable.
Very uncomfortable.
So.
Kennedy, I want to circle back around to something you said, and you said, I think you said something like, you got to put yourself first, self-care. What does that actually look like?
I've been on my healing, on my healing journey. I've really been learning to take space for myself. Is where I'm at. Like, I love my friends. I love the people I surround myself with. I always make sure if I am around people, I'm surrounding myself with the type of energy I want to be around. But all of my friends know, I kind of set that boundary that it's like I need time to be to myself and kind of sit with my feelings, because I have a tendency to bottle all that up. So I find that taking that time for myself, sitting there and really kind of defining my emotions, like, okay, why did I feel this way about what this person said to me? Like really analyzing it kind of helps me get through it faster. That way I'm not dwelling in it. Like, I read somewhere somebody was like, you're allowed to feel those emotions for about 7 minutes. After that, like, not get over it, but get past it, like get through it. So it's definitely just learning how to power through and kind of take care of yourself, your mental, your physical. Like going to get my toes done for some reason, it just getting my hair done, like it does something for you. Like you have to take care of your outside as well as your inside, like both inside and outside wounds, I feel like.
So what are some practices? How do you take care of your inside?
My insides, I've really been trying to meditate. I'm not as consistent as I want to be, but meditation really, like, I feel like I have a lot going on in my head sometimes. And so if I sit there, and the practice of meditation is focusing on one thing, is controlling your breathing, it's focusing on the now, your physical and everything like that. So I find it's not an instant. It definitely is taking time, but each time I do it, like I get less distracted as I'm meditating. So like maybe the first time I start, like I'm thinking and I'm like, I'm trying to meditate right now. I can't do it. I'm thinking about something else. It's a song playing in my head, but like you keep doing it and it's like, okay, all of a sudden I'm not singing no more. Okay, so I can kind of get in tune. And once you can block all of those things out, you can kind of get to the root of the problem and things like that. So definitely meditation, and I journal a lot too. Because I'm difficult with my communication. I'm working on it, but I find that if I write it down, I can just get it off of my shoulders, and it can be just on the paper. And if it's on the paper, I can see it, I can analyze it, I can get rid of it if I want to. Sometimes I burn it if it's that bad. Like, I feel like I have the power over those thoughts. I have the power over the things that are making me feel the way I am, instead of just letting it win. Like, that's how I'm thinking of it.
I love that.
I love that, Kay.
Yeah, I love
I'm trying.
And having spent so many years, because that's what the work I would do, is bring that yoga kind of off the mat. And some of the things you say, I'm so excited that like you're the age you are and saying this, and so proactive with it. And why do we do it, right? Like what we're doing is, like, I'm hearing the power of the word, power of thought, power of the mind, power of being the witness. These are, again, all very intuitive inner things that women in our leadership, when you say, I am woman, this is that is woman. That is woman. It's not only women who do it, but that is it. And so it's like we've waited how many hundreds of years to have that become like more of the cultural norm or allowance that's not just church or just anti-church or whatever the mumbo jumbo. And that we lost the woman in that. Like we made it this religious conversation. We made it this sinning conversation. We made this complicated, and that's in India, that's in whatever. And it's like, no, actually that was woman. When we meditate, we're showing that. So I love that you're saying that.
Absolutely, at such a young age.
It's crazy that you said something about like finding rest within yourself, because I literally was just having a conversation with God the other day. Like, and I was having a bad day, and I've been watching this podcaster named Deanna, and she's like a Christian podcaster.
He's like, well, yes.
Yeah. So she had this podcast, and she was like talking about how she realized that she never lets like God rest in her, and she's like, how selfish of me, like he has to deal with me times like infinity, like how hard, or whatever. So like that like crossed my mind while I was like talking to God, and I like genuinely started feeling bad. I was like, you know what? I was like, all that I'm going through today, and I like want to come and I want to rant and I want to say all this stuff. I'm just gonna let you rest, and I'm gonna rest too, and then I'm gonna feel better. Yeah. Because Isaiah literally went to God. I was like, I want to kill myself, and God was like, let's take a nap.
Literally.
Snack.
A nap will do it.
Rest.
A nap
I
will
mean,
do it every time.
your work with holistic wellness and things like that, just even, right? We need to rest.
Yes, absolutely.
Rest to digest.
Absolutely. Rest is very important. One of the things that I wanted to ask you, Dr. Lisa, was how would you instruct a person to re-embrace themselves? Like, what are you said it's layers and layers.
Yeah, that's a difficult question because it really does have to be individualized because you here's what I will say. There's a million techniques, but what takes the skilled analysis is the assessment of where that person is on their journey, like what layer are they in. And the best I can maybe describe this is I will speak through the kind of the yogic vision of layers of us in this sort of energetics, because that whole thing is about being in the quantum, not necessarily the physical, which, by the way, we are in science. Like, nobody in science is following Newton's laws anymore. Like,
Right.
they understand we're in quantum law now, but we're still learning and we're still teaching that same kind of everything is matter. No, everything is energy. And in that, there's like layers of you. Kind of like, those like, what do they call the Russian dolls? That one's inside of the other and the other's inside of you.
Yeah.
Kind of have that. And I would say you have to know what layer the person is, because the most outer layer is that whole physical world. So
Right.
if that's it, that's the stuff I would give them. I'd tell them to go to yoga. I'd tell them to do maybe just even exercise.
Yeah.
Just move their body around, like when they're feeling uncomfortable, because some people can't be there in that moment that you were in describing. It's like you can't just tell somebody who's like a Ferrari to be sitting and idling. Like they need that step down. So I might work with that. I might be like, just walk in the stuff you normally do, but add a little something. Now, if they're more at the little bit deeper as being maybe more at the sensory body or whatever, maybe you give it like the spa or the this or the that. You allow yourself to be in that place of surrender, even if for the moment, and it doesn't feel like I'm giving up or I'm losing. You make it feel like the win.
There's power in surrender.
Yeah, there is power in surrender. It might just be, again, use the sensations, the beautiful candle smells or whatever, healthy kind of things. Go out in nature, get that
some grass.
sensation, right? And if somebody's at the level of the mind, then maybe you say sit and be there with that mind or whatever. So you kind of have to really understand, because these are neurological protective layers deep in our core. And if you want to get somebody out of the fight response and that warrior survivalist mentality and into that divine feminine, which is love, which is the matrix, not commitment to fear and how do I protect myself in my primal brain and eat all these things and jump in a cold tank and go fight a thing and whatever, but how do I do the thing where I actually say I'm actually committed to love and without being hurt in that process. It's not like you make yourself available for everybody to have access to you. In fact, it's actually the opposite. Now you're being like more like the queen. Who gets to come to my kingdom and where do you go? You get to go to that room. You go to that room, you go to that room.
Now they're calling it the soft life.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so ready to be like in my soft girl era.
You literally could be in it. Like it's such a state of mind is what I feel like. Like everybody makes the soft era feel like I have to be super soft. I have to smell like vanilla and go shopping on Saturdays and get my nails done every 2 weeks. Like that's cool and all, but it's like
Your mindset.
you really have to be like you have to believe that this is the life I want for myself, because manifestation is real. It's the power of your tongue. You have to say.
Oh my God.
I've been learning. I really been.
We were just talking about like even embracing your feminine, understanding what that really means and the power that it carries. Like you understand your mouth is a wound too. It carries life and death. And girl, you just made me so.
It's a womb and a wound.
But
Like you got to be, so she's talking wisdom. She got wisdom.
You just, that's what I've been noticing. Like you have to say it, like so, like the smallest stuff. Like I want a car, I'll be like, that's my car over there. Like when I see it drive by, like it's just the way you say stuff. It's the way you believe it and all of that. So if you believe,
And that
it,
is the modeling, because that's when, if we think of the masculine power, it doesn't have the grace. It's not grace-fed. It's fear-fed. That's not necessarily negative. We need sometimes when you walk into the wrong room, you need to understand and have that space. But who's there to teach that to a man in himself, that other image, if it didn't come from his mother? You know, there's nobody really gonna, you know, and then that gets, and it does become kind of the role of whoever they're paired with, whoever it is, to bring out some of that sort of ability to, like I don't even like even calling it soft. It's more like receptive, right? Like you can't always have that armor be where everything bounces off like Teflon.
Yeah.
It has to sometimes be where you're going to absorb, and that you understand that you have the strength and ability. Number one, you have the identity to understand what's yours and what's theirs. And number two, that I got this. Like, if it comes in too close, or it's coming, like, I'm going to be okay with that. I can deal with that. And I think that's where a lot of women get depleted, because we don't understand the power of our cycles. We don't even understand we work on a 30-day cycle. We don't work on a 7-day cycle. Yeah. Like, we give away so much power with that, not knowing that. And that's not our fault.
It's not our fault.
It's just the cultural kind of thing that makes it seem like that period is so inconvenient. Like, sorry. Like, you got punished by that. Meanwhile, I'm like, does that really make sense? Do you think God would punish you with the ability to be another God and bring life force? Like, does that seem like a punishment? It doesn't seem like that would be the punishment. Like, that's not a punishment. You were made like a God. You know, like, you were given the grace of being made like a God. And because it's only you and God doing that.
Absolutely.
So.
That's such an amazing way to think of it.
Think about it, yeah.
That's so powerful in itself.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're
saying. Do you guys think it's important to embrace, like, the rage and, like, the chaos, like, when you are, like, fighting your femininity and your masculinity?
In the healthiest way, I feel like some people take advantage of that.
Yeah, but no, you know what I mean. Like,
no, I know what you mean. I'm just saying, like, if in a perfect world, people would use it to their advantage and not an excuse to lash out and be
hurt other
give an
people.
example.
Right.
How would you use that to your advantage?
Right. That's why you need your own core leadership, because it is, like I said, accountability and responsibility. If you want the keys to that car, you're going to be responsible for if there's an accident. Right. I don't care if you say somebody was drunk and they hit into you. There's a responsibility still in how you reacted to that, how you responded to that in that thing, right? And so that, I mean, that's, you can abuse it. I mean, again, if you're not in a healthy place, you will get the power, and it's like when somebody gets into the NBA or the NFL or whatever, and they're given this $5 million contract, and you're like, where'd all the money go? Because they weren't in a healthy place, just because they can do something good.
Yeah. Right. This is great. Oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Let's talk cycles. Let's talk
cycles. We were talking about how in other cultures, the matriarch is honored, and they have rituals, they have things set aside to honor that woman in those times. And here we're, like you said, it's like the negative attitudes and things of that nature. So explain to us your knowledge on how to embrace that.
This is just a human conversation. It's not man or woman, but there
Right.
were rites of passage, and there were just like
Right.
seasons of change, and we're sitting here in an air-conditioned space or whatever, and I couldn't tell you, like, if I didn't know, I could sit here and for 5 months be like, if you stop telling me the date or whatever, I might not know with these windows or whatever, like what season it is, unless I start seeing snow or something, I'll be like, oh, I guess it's winter, but I'm feeling the same in here. So we're so disconnected to like that whole thing, and we have such fear of death. I mean, look what we do to just stay young, you know, like look young, like we want to deny that there's age. And unfortunately, we act immature. So that's great, right? Like, it's not helping society. We all look young and we're all acting like babies.
Right.
Yay! You know, like, but part of that in the I am woman conversation is we were given this cycle, right? Like we were given this to bring that same idea of seasons of life, and when we can go into, you know, this, we are fertile, we're not fertile, and when we have our intuitive wisdom is really strong, like, you know, just even getting educated in that and understanding that, like, you're in such dysfunction maybe because you're trying to rev yourself up and be like, I can do it, and just ignore I'm bleeding while I'm doing it, and just like it doesn't even make sense.
It doesn't.
But society's not set up for that. So you go and sit 30 years into that. And now it's so much earlier because I was in women's health. So I would be like, when I started in women's health, I was seeing menstrual dysfunctions and this and that in older women, like not, I don't even mean menopause, but I mean like women who were trying to get pregnant and then they were having some problems with that or whatever. Maybe they're in their 30s or, they waited a little longer and whatever. Then by the time, 10 years later, I'm having these same conversations of these pains and this and that with 13-year-olds. And I'm like, you literally just got your period. Like, how is it so dysfunctional already? And it's the food and now it's the blue light. And like, nobody's teaching us that. Nobody's teaching women.
It's starting to be a shift in that area. I've seen recently where they're starting to have period parties now. They're teaching the little girls how to embrace their cycles and things of that nature. But it was like, you're right. It's been such a taboo topic that generations have missed out on so much that we have to it's like playing catch up. Like, we're behind the eight ball.
Right.
I feel like you did good with that though, Mom, because I remember, oh my God, guys, little backstory. I remember when I was little and I first got my period, my mom cried for like 2 hours. And then she was like, you don't have to go to school. And she took me to the store and she got me pizza, chocolate, and balloons.
But they're starting to have ritual, like they really have ritual ceremonies now, teaching the little girls the importance of their cycles. And I think
we need to start also telling the little boys about this.
Exactly.
Like, they still separate the rooms, and then the guys' room, which I didn't understand. I didn't know. Like, when I went, maybe they change it now, but they literally didn't even talk about the bleeding part. They were just like, they go through a thing and it's a whatever. Like, they didn't even tell them. So like, it's like, of course, like, we don't understand it. They don't understand it. We're having different mood things. We don't use our power at the right time. We talk about serious things at the wrong time of the month. Like, we're just so out of it.
I believe that could play a part in the men these days, like learning how to be sensitive and things that
how to play the game on our field.
Right.
We learned their field, now learn our field.
But it's the lack of education and lack of understanding. And you're right, we do need to start having these conversations in our culture, in our communities.
Yeah, like, what's the taboo? What is the taboo? It's like, it's like the pink elephant in the room.
Definitely.
It's like, we all know it,
It's just really sad because I've experienced, like, a group of, like, my guy friends sit and talk about how, like, they really don't understand how the women, like, brain works. They're like, it's just so confusing. I don't even know what to do. And it'll just sound so, like, misogynistic, but I can't do anything but laugh. I don't know.
Right.
But it's insane because a lot of men think that way.
Well, I mean, what you don't understand, you will eventually misuse. Mm-hmm. Like with anything. If somebody never taught you how to drive a car, it don't matter how old you get. It don't matter how many times you watch somebody drive a car. If nobody actually takes you through it with you, same thing. I mean, everything's like that. And so that's why if you don't understand a woman, I mean, what people don't understand, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, they didn't even start studying women in scientific research. So they had all the research and they're doing. They didn't. What years do you think they started studying putting women in the research?
Like 40.
I would really hope like early on.
Mid 1990s.
90s.
Yeah.
Up until then, they were just like, it's a little man, we'll just cut the pill in half. I'm sure it'll work just the way I like.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're like. So we've kind of come pretty far, pretty fast, but like, how much do they really of course we don't understand ourselves. They didn't even research us, and the reason they didn't is because the cycles don't really work with the data points, so we're just going to ignore it. And it's like, well, then that's ignoring half of the, and how, I'm going to ask you guys this too. What do you think we rank in America with the cost of healthcare and how we're so great in healthcare, supposedly? Out of, let's say, 50, where do you think the United States is in terms of maternal wellness, meaning the process of getting pregnant, having a baby in a healthy way afterwards? What number do you think we are?
Like percentile-wise?
No, like
what number on the list of like the worst is like 50 and the best is number 1?
like 50.
And I'm talking about like Zimbabwe's on that list, you know, unindustrialized countries are on that list.
Go up a little
Well,
bit.
realistically,
43. Something
Yeah.
like that.
Exactly where we are.
Yes.
That's where
Good
we're
check.
at.
Yep. We're about between 43, 46, depending on the thing.
That's
And that's sad because
That's
when I
sad.
started in maternal health and made that switch in the early 2000s, we were around 30. So we've actually gotten worse.
Gotten worse.
So what does that
sad.
say?
I mean,
We're not taking care of our mothers.
Even in Georgia, we have 8 counties that does not have obstetrics services.
Okay, see, that's kind of scary.
And then the
It's
ones that
very
do,
scary.
And then the ones that do, they're not catering to a mother carrying a child. Like, you would think that it was so blah the way they handle it, and they don't, like, you should be handling this one with care, like, and to just hear the stories about women passing, giving birth, but it's not because you wasn't stable enough. It's because you didn't know what medicine she needed. You didn't know that the slightest stuff, like,
you didn't know anything about her body
or
as
how her system is, none of
exactly.
that.
And I feel like if you're gonna do something like that, you need to know, because every woman's body is different. You need to know the difference genetically, like anything.
But that's also our
you're
responsibility. Like y'all said, it starts very young. Like, when we were younger, like, we were told very paperless stuff, like basic things about my cycle and what my body does and everything like that.
Google.
Right, Google.
But then
So-
you got to watch what's on that Google now,
Right.
too.
Exactly.
You weren't taught
And now
to
they're
embrace
GPTing it,
Right.
and they don't understand. That's just
And
whatever
now-
anybody been talking about.
And now it's a domino effect because I don't know much about my body. So the next person that I'm with, or my partner or anything like that, they don't know anything about my body. The next doctor I go to is not going to know anything either because he's a man and he doesn't know my body. Like, it's just nobody's helping
And the
each
women,
other.
unfortunately, that are helping you, they never understood.
They never
really fully,
understood it.
and they understand it as a mechanistic type of thing. But that's just a conversation about medicine, right? Medicine's been so industrialized, like everything else, that we've made everything about the industry, the machine, and this and this and that, and we're literally like in the machine, right? So now we get back to raging, right?
Do you know that
Raging on
back
the
in
machine.
the day, the culture was a woman was not to leave the house with a baby for 45 days. She was to rest and be catered to.
I saw a TikTok about that.
Right, and now we have just as many
Exactly.
women fighting if you try to have them do that as men.
Right.
So this again, it's like we're getting in this confusion. Like, I don't gotta stay home and whatever, and I should be able to go out and run. Like, I'd have conversations with people like, I get it, but like literally, like, don't you want to take care of your organs? Like, do you understand what just happened to you? Like, I get it. You're a strong woman. Nobody should keep you back.
The most
But like,
traumatic experience ever.
But I think what that stems from, I feel like, because 100%, like, take care of yourself. Like, you don't have to, you're secure in what you are. Exactly like society has made women
feel like
we have to be
Right,
so
exactly.
independent. We have to be so,
we have to
I
snap
have
back.
to go and get it. I
Oh,
have
look
to,
at my snapback.
I have to
You know what I'm
hustle. I have
saying?
to hurry up because in real life, it's not going to take long for them to replace you as a woman. It's too many to an industry, to a company. It's too many complications. Like, God forbid something's wrong with your pregnancy and you're out for longer than you should have. Now you're already looking at somebody to replace you.
right. So it's not fix us. We've got to get into the system.
Into the
Exactly.
system.
So that's why I feel like women are constantly working so hard. We're working 200% from the next person because we feel like we have to work harder to be successful and to keep
But that's
that
the
hustle.
problem.
In
Exactly.
that system.
That's
That's why I
the
talk about the
problem.
curvy hustle, because we just got to say, like, at some point, we just got to sit around and say, it's not this way anymore. But we have the ability now to make our own economies. You ladies were talking about your careers and doing these things. Like, when I wanted to make an exercise video, when I wanted to do a live kind of thing or whatever, when I started my business back in 2005 as the Belly Guru, I had priced it in 2006. $20,000 it was going to be to make my DVD and whatever, which was, and then how was I going to market that? Probably I have to get print ads or whatever. I mean, this was like a 50, you guys could take your phone and be your own app and send it to your friends and make money off of it. Like, we have never had the ability as now. And to be perfectly honest, I think that's super scary for men, because as much as we were guided in the little bits we were, for the past, let's say, 50 years of the feminist movement,
Right.
where have the men been taught anything
Neglected.
about working into whatever? They have
Yeah.
nothing. So they're
Nothing.
literally watching us change and shift.
Evolve.
And they don't have the direction. They're kind of catching up, and so it's
But
not like
again-
you got to step up, but it's also I have to understand that, and there is a group of women that I think needs to kind of stand in and be
Right.
like, I understand what I just said.
I feel like, can we talk about this ugly spirit of intimidation that like men have, and like how they react like so toxically to like your growth?
It's fear.
It's fear, right?
It's fear, but I've learned, like, I've really been trying to understand men, like, for a second.
Yeah.
But it's like,
Wait.
you can't, like, in a way, you have to play devil's advocate for them, because it's like, most of the time,
They really
they're
don't
growing
get it,
up
yeah.
not knowing how to face those emotions. They're not
Right.
knowing how to go through these things.
Taking
So-
accountability, like, okay, you
So
know what,
on-
maybe you did grow up a little bit.
So on
how-
one side,
so-
you want to feel bad and you want to give them a pass, but on the other hand, it's like,
when are
you're 22
I
years
have
old.
to
You've lived
stand
a
on-
life.
yeah.
You've had women figures in your life. You've had these people in your life who have tried and have been trying to open that part of you up. Now it's on you.
Now that's what I'm
So-
talking about. They're not the idea of receptivity, of being soft, to be able to absorb what people are trying to give them. That's a huge challenge
And then when they
because
are,
they don't see it. Where's their
Now they're
model? If you're all
sassy.
toughy, if the women are toughy in their life and they're tough, they're supposed to be tough. Where do they learn that? Even though you're intuitively saying it, there's something in you and the way we're designed as women that even when we're acting tough or whatever, when somebody gives us that bear hug and makes us feel safe, we can respond to that. It's like we know it in ourselves. They don't necessarily have that unless they've been imprinted with that. I really think it's in that double XX thing.
Again,
In that soup.
See?
so if it's not imprinted in them, how do we use our divine feminine?
Because we be love.
Yeah.
Like I
You
am
have to
love.
embody
I
it.
have to embody
Stop,
it.
guys. I was just.
So wait, there's a line. So, and then you have to use discernment. So
Yes,
when
discernment.
at what point is it we're showing love to nurture that masculinity, but at what point do you
Masculinity.
choose?
Yeah, but those
Yeah.
are two conversations. Let's look at the words correct because words are powerful. We're not nurturing their masculinity or femininity in that process. We're nurturing the masculine power to be felt and energy to be felt comfortably enough to be received, or the feminine energy to be nurtured and comfortable enough to be received. This is at an energetic thing, like people's vibes. People's the way that's different than, and that can be exhibited, I think, in all different mixes of masculine and feminine. It's just a feel. It's so hard to kind of, we want personification. We want to make it a picture that we can see, but we all know what we're talking about, right? We know it's an energy, it's a vibe. It's when somebody walks in the room and they either are taking their stance in a leadership style of what we would assume is like this masculinity, but it's just the masculine power. But if I see it in a woman, like I think sometimes I stand, and I don't necessarily think I come off as I'm looking like a man and masculine, but I think I do go into that masculine power sometimes by the way I sit or whatever, take up space, kind of, maybe hold my voice at a different octave or something like that, say things in a certain different way, whereas I might be more flowery in speaking, but still I'm not so soft that I'm not putting my, people are still listening and maybe respecting me, but it's a different, it's a code switch. It literally is a code switch. It's like, how you start talking to certain people and you sort of like code switch. It's taking that power and it's a code switch. It's a power flex. So I want to be very conscious of that because I think that's where people are confused. It's femininity, masculinity, and they say that's a construct. Everything's a construct, and up to the point of like, you don't need body parts and all of this stuff as a construct. It's like that was a construction of nature. You're right. Like we didn't make that up. I can't be like, and then we're trying to do that, right? I'm just gonna change this surgically, and then everything's gonna change. Not necessarily. And we're really we just got to be it. We just got to be it and what that is. And then we teach whoever is in our relationship with us at the time, this is my exhibit of this. Yours will be different. And that's another thing, right? You can't expect them to be like yours.
it's patience, yeah. Because I feel like it takes a man a lot longer to open up than women do.
Yes.
Like, statistically, it really does. So you have to, like, you can't push men. They're so easy to be like, okay, that's too much, too fast for me. And now they're pulling away. Most men are like that.
And
So
when
the
you see them pull away, don't go run.
The question
Let them
was,
grow.
how do you determine when to set the boundaries? That was the question.
Because if you know yourself and your
Yeah.
boundary, like it's
You
knowing
have to
you-
be there within yourself. You have to
Right.
get to your point where you're like, you know what? That's
like
that,
you're gonna
it's
have
wraps.
to. Women need to start learning that they need to be strong. Like again, it's not like you say, "I can't do." If I have to, I will leave. If I have to, like again, here's the thing: if you can't meet that, then it's not that that man can't get there. But how about we flip it and say, "You're not the woman to get him there."
Right.
You need to
That's
admit that
real.
in your ego.
That's
You're
real.
not the woman
Correct.
to get him there.
And that's okay
If he can. And it's
sometimes.
okay. Exactly. It's not because you're
That's very
broken
okay.
or you're this or you're that. You're not that person for them. Just like they're not that person that's going to take you to your next
Right.
level.
Y'all aren't needed for each other. I was just telling somebody
And-
this. You're not needed for each other for this part of your story. Maybe it is written in the stars or whatever, or maybe y'all are supposed to cross paths, but maybe not right now.
Right. Right.
You have to do this part alone, and that's fine sometimes. But I think when it comes to nurturing a man, I think it's being there and showing up, because that's what, I don't know, I just feel like that's what I would want somebody to do for me. So it's reciprocating the
do.
energy that you want out of that person, and they're either gonna respect it and y'all are gonna begin to get deeper like that and get closer and be able to talk about those hard topics, or they're gonna get scared and they're gonna run, and that's okay. That they're not ready, you're ready, you need to find someone who's ready with you.
Right.
That's fine.
And when you stand in that then attracts people who can see that. And
Yeah.
some people can't see it. Some people can't see it. And it's not that you're broke or they're broke. It's just it's not on the same page.
All right, Kay. We're going to end on that note, and that's the real. Yes. Girl.
Love you.